Live life so that you create good vibes. The good vibes. Live life so that you radiate good vibes. The good vibes. Live life so that you generate good vibes. The good vibes. Live life so as to emanate good vibes. The good vibes. Spread the message of your life with good vibes. With good vibes. With good vibes. Welcome to the Good Vibes podcast. Hey my friends, and welcome to this episode of the Good Vibes. I'm super excited that you are over here. Today we will continue on our journey of evolved learning. Evolved learning is when we learn from all the people in our lives and otherwise, all the things and experiences that we encounter. In general, we learn from life. So get pumped up now to feel alive with the good vibes. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Good Vibes podcast. Today we have a special episode in the house. We have a conversation with Dr. Sonali Verma, who is the Indian Army's first lady skydiver and the Indian Army's third lady paratrooper. She is currently a doctor in the Indian Army. And we have this amazing conversation about fears. So if you have any fears that you want to overcome in your mind, write them down or get ready to overcome this, because this is a really detailed podcast and she gives you the exact steps to overcome and conquer your fear. And the first step is surprisingly very simple, yet most of us get it wrong. With that said, I'll leave you with that much information so you can enjoy this podcast. And today we are going to talk about how she's gone through this journey of skydiving and paratrooping and how it's helped her overcome the fear of the same thing. How you need to think to skydive and what's the mindset you need to have to be ready to go out there every time. She's done it over 50 times. So we're talking with someone who's done this and enjoys it. Now, let me introduce to you Mrs. Sonali Verma. It's a pleasure to have you here, Auntie.
Thanks, Tushar. And it's wonderful to be here as well. So he's asked a very relevant question about the fear. Of course, there is fear. Anybody who says they're not scared of jumping is either not used to wearing a parachute or has never done it before. Okay. So it's not that you have fear and so you don't want to jump. If you don't want to jump, don't jump. The most important thing about doing any such sport is to overcome your fear of the sport first. You have to want to do something like this. Right? So skydiving is a fun thing. You do it if you want to do it. And when you want to do it, obviously you have to be aware. Whenever you do anything, if you touch an electric socket also, without knowing that if you touch it the wrong way, you'll get a shock, then you're doing something stupid. Right? So the point out here is that you've already committed to do something. Now, once you've made your commitment to yourself, you've already overcome 50% of the fear. Right? Now, the balance 50%. What do you do with the balance 50%? So, 40% of the balance will go once you've done good ground training and you have faith in your body and you know that your body is capable of having its muscle memory and you have to trust yourself, with yourself, when you're jumping. So that's 90% of the fear gone. Okay. And the rest 10% comes when you actually have to exit the aircraft. Okay. So when you have to exit the aircraft, the most important thing when you take the leap is human beings were never meant to fly. So it's a very strange feeling and it reduces after every jump. But that one skip of the heartbeat is there. At least for me, it is still there. Okay. Yes. But the important thing is that with training and with more and more jumps, you become aware of your body much earlier. your body behaves in a particular manner in which it is very much in control. You're in control of your dive and you start really enjoying it. It's like you actually see or feel what a bird does when it flies. And it's an amazing feeling, but you don't get there like right away. It takes at least 10 to 15 jumps continuously so that you at least start getting that feeling. And that is why an A certificate is like 25 jumps. For the simple reason that it takes about that many jumps before you actually get used to this feeling of exiting an aircraft, then stabilizing your body, then looking at the right altitude, opening up your parachute at the right altitude, and totally navigating your way back to the drop zone.
So you just heard how skydiving is. And like the important thing she said is we were not designed to fly. We are humans. But these people are made of something different. They want to be like birds who really fly in the sky. They are literally flying. And I want to ask you this. What, like you said, you do it only if you want to. And for many people, it is always a life at stake. What was it for you? Why? And also, you're the first lady Indian Army skydiver. Does that hold relevance? Why didn't people do it before you? And why were you the first one? I mean, you had something in you that said, no, I got to do this. And that's how you found your way to do something. Was it something of that?
No, actually, it's the existence of the infrastructure. And yes, the opportunity also. So, when I was doing paratrooping is a totally professional aspect of army life. It is not for fun, but again, it's a purely volunteer course. You don't become a paratrooper unless you want to, because it will involve jumping out of an aircraft. And this applies in every field of the armed forces also, where there is a lot of risk involved. It's a purely volunteer force. Nobody can force you to do this. But the important thing is that when I was doing paratrooping at the age of 26, at that time, there was no facility for adventure skydiving. So it was not just me, there were many other people, the guys also who wanted to volunteer but did not have the option. And the only people who had that capability at that time was the Air Force, and it was fairly restricted to the uniform. The other aspect of it was that combat freefall was available, but combat freefall was not something that doctors did, and definitely not that ladies were allowed to do it. And it is still my grouse, women are still not allowed to do it. Yeah. But obviously, it's a professional course, it requires something professional at the end of it. Yes. So just doing it because I want to do it would be really incorrect. Yes. But the important thing is, it is the matter of an opportunity. I'm sure since I was a third lady paratrooper, I was asked if I would like to do it. But had the opportunity been available, I'm sure there would be other ladies before me who would have probably done this as well.
Okay. And getting to why you wanted to do it?
Well, actually it's in my blood. My father was a paratrooper as well. Okay. And my main aim when I joined the uniform was to become one. Okay. Yeah. So I had admission in a lot of other medical colleges, but I left them all basically to join AFMC. My aim was to become a doctor in the army. That was, those days you could only become a doctor in the army, and it was the only way that a lady could wear the army uniform. So I chose to become a doctor in the army, and I wanted to be a paratrooper.
Yeah, and even today, Sonali auntie wears the maroon beret, which signifies that you are a paratrooper and you have served in a para brigade for 2 years, and you get to wear that for life. And that's a privilege. It's a cut above. You can see a maroon beret from a distance and you can know who that is. It's a symbol of courage and a lot of other things. So getting to the fear aspect, how can we overcome a fear the same way you did it to that? If we were to use the same steps you used to overcome the fear of flying, what can we do in our normal lives? Because not everyone is going to go and jump out of a helicopter. But everyone has fears. So we need to learn to overcome fears regardless of what it is. So what's the technique that you use to, or what did you tell yourself before the jump that it's all going to be okay? What did you tell yourself?
I told myself that whether I trust myself or not, I definitely trust my umbrella. So it's the faith that you have in your training, and it's the faith that you have in your equipment. And actually, in the end, that's what really matters. But what Tushar has asked is how to overcome a fear. Now, fears are something which actually have no etiology. They could be rational fears. Like I would be scared of jumping off a building, which is normal for everybody. They could be irrational fears. I could see a spider and be scared to death. So, the idea of getting over a fear is you identify the fear first. That this is the reason that I'm scared. You identify the reason for the fear, and then you decide whether you want to overcome it or not. Once you've made a decision, like I said, once you've decided, I will do this, that's 50% of your battle won. The rest will, of course, depend on your training and what you have set out to do, whether it's climbing mountains or jumping from aircrafts.
So, like she just said, the first important step is to identify your fears. So, you have to tell yourself, boss, this is my fear. And then you decide whether you want to overcome it or not. And then the next 40% is in training. Now, for her, it was paratrooping training, which the trainers provided. But you can provide yourself the training by constantly going and battling your fears on an everyday basis. And then the last 10% is?
The last 10% will be when you encounter that particular situation. So that you've already made up your mind. Now you have the training to get over it. So thereafter, that 10% you have to trust yourself. That I will do what I set out to do. The moment you trust yourself and the person who is with you or the equipment that is with you or the situation in which you were supposed to overcome that fear is there, then you will overcome it. It's all within the mind and your presence of mind at that particular time.
That was the final 10%. And when you were in training, was there something that the instructors constantly told you which we can apply to our lives? Like the instructors would perhaps tell you it's going to be okay, or something they always repeated so that it just sticks in your mind. It's permanently over there.
It's because it's very clear there's only one thing that the instructors always said. That is, keep on practicing, and trust yourself, and that there is absolutely no substitute for training for whatever you're practicing to do. There's an old saying that practice makes a man perfect. And there is absolute truth in that, because if you really want to excel, whether it is skydiving or climbing a mountain or doing a trek or doing water river rafting, you just practice until you have overcome all the fears and all the problems as well.
So that was it. It's about practice. It's firstly about identifying your fears, then practicing it and battling out your fears on an everyday basis. Like the instructors, like Auntie told me, she has to do it at least 15 times, getting out of the plane 15 times to get over the feeling of getting out of a plane. And that's when the fear starts reducing bit by bit. Now we're going to have a final word from Auntie and just tell us why one should skydive.
Because it's the most beautiful experience on earth. It's the most beautiful and probably the safest. You can get hit more by traffic these days while you're crossing a road in Delhi or something. At least when you skydive, you know you're going to land somewhere where you're going to be safe.
Yeah. And it isn't as life-threatening as you people think it is. She's done it 50 times and she has instructors who've done it over 1,000 times. And that's what she's telling you. It's a safe sport. It's an adventure sport. Of course, your life has some risk. There's some risk to it, but that's the fun of the sport. Now, that was Mrs. Sonali Verma of the Indian Army. It was a pleasure talking to you, Auntie. I'm so glad you came here.
Thanks. It was a pleasure talking to you, Tushar. And okay, guys, welcome to the club. So let's hope to see you skydiving with me very soon.
Okay, I'll meet you again next time. Woo! Welcome to the club. What a way to end this podcast. And I tell you, it's been a really nice experience to edit this podcast because I got to re-listen to it. And like really find the juicy content of it, and that's what I've used to promote my material. And for all of you who really got inspired and want to hear more from Colonel Sonali, I have something really special lined up for you. So here's the deal. Before a podcast, I have to sit with the guest and have a pre-chat about what we'll talk about and what the experiences and some other experiences that they have experienced. And while doing this with Colonel Sonali, I happened to record this portion of the chat, and she reveals how she survived an almost fatal crash while she was skydiving. Her parachute didn't open up, her altitude meter wasn't working, and I mean, she had no one to rescue her but herself. And she had, I think, just 3 or 4 seconds remaining before she was going to crash. And it's a really exciting story to hear. Also, like, you feel the depth of life in those moments. But I mean, she was quick on her feet, she was very quick to react, and she saved herself. So she shares this experience with us. Now, for those of you who want to listen to this special piece, I'm going to put on just snippets of it in a coming episode. It'll be just like a small mini episode with just snippets of, I mean, what she's talking about, so you have an idea of what we're really dealing with. But the real whole entire clip is going to be put on my Patreon page. So for that, you have to go to patreon.com/your_local_podcaster, and that's the same title of my Instagram ID, which is @your_local_podcaster. And over there, you'll need to become a patron to access this content. So you get to become by becoming a patron, it means that you're donating $1 or $2 as per your as per your liking. You donate $1 or $2, that is around 70 or 140 rupees a month, to my Patreon page, and I receive this money and it helps me handle my podcast. I mean, the funds to run the website, the funds to cover the costs of hosting the podcast are covered by this money that you're going to give me. And so this is how it works. Like, you support me by giving me love. You give me love by giving ratings and reviews. You can also help me by supporting and donating money to my cause of spreading good vibes. And in return, I give patrons extra access, and I give them these interviews, and I give them a whole lot of extra bonus things. And I'm all in for this, and I'm trying to test it out because I need to start making a living out of this. And at least I need to self-sustain my podcast, because right now all the expenses are on my father. So it would be really good if you head over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/yourlocalpodcaster. The links will of course be in the bio, and you can access these epic snippets and hear these amazing stories. There'll be even more amazing bonuses coming in the future. So, it's a great time to dive in. Okay, see you until next time.
Hey my friends, did you enjoy this podcast? If you did, do rate, review and subscribe to it on iTunes or whichever app or application you are using. And if you feel someone in your life needs to hear this message, don't think twice about sharing it. Or if you feel this inspires you to record one of your own podcasts, go ahead and spread the good vibes. Spread the message of your life.